I'm very pleased to welcome Gitesh Rampersadh, formerly Sathyandra Rampersadh, but his calling name is Gitesh. I hope I got that right.
You
Gitesh,
got it
more or
right,
less.
Ian.
More, good. Now listen, I'm very, very pleased to hear from you, and please um, introduce yourself and tell us what branch of the medical profession you practice in, and maybe take us through a little bit of a history of how you got to where you are today. What are your roots? Where did you study? And what's your professional experience in, an overview of all of that?
Perfect. Ian, firstly, I just want to thank you and SAMLR for an amazing, the basic course was unbelievable. And you had a very big part in that when you talked about the expert witness. And the intermediate course is really very eye-opening for me as a medical practitioner. So just to give you a little bit of background from where I started. Uh, I come from a very rural part of Natal. Um, my dad was a principal and my mother was a housewife. And I was thinking about what to say when I was watching your interview with Lorna, and I'm really impressed with her because if it's really much the same, because you start off in one direction and then you end up in another. So I matriculated in 1970, and the funny thing at that time was, unlike these days, you never planned a career path. You waited for the results to come and then you decided what you were going to do. So that's exactly what happened. And then I had, at that time, applied to the University of Durban, Westphal to do science. And I did the what's called the Big Four, which is biology, zoology, chemistry, and maths. Physics, sorry. Yeah. So while I was studying there, we used to meet at lunchtime with a group of the people that were in third year. And I still remember this. I had finished my exams and I had gone to the campus, and there were a group of guys that had finished, were doing the final year, and they were applying for places at medical school, and they had one form extra. And they said, listen, why don't you just apply?
Can you believe it?
Yeah, with no intention. This was absolutely no intention.
Mm.
And so I filled in the form and it went off. Lo and behold, at the next year, the beginning of the next year, I get this response back from at that time it was called the University of Natal Black Section, the medical school. I'm talking about 1971 when we were in the middle of the apartheid era. So I get this reply back and it says, you've been accepted. So I go to my dad and I said, listen, what must I do? Because this was not a career plan, you know. And so he said, listen, what do you want to do? Because
Yeah, what are you gonna do?
my first cousin, the only reason I ended up going to UDW was my first cousins were in the engineering department, and
Right.
they were lecturers there. So
Yeah.
it kind of almost like seemed like you should do that. Yeah. So anyway, so he says, well, what do you want to do? So I said, okay, uh, let me go to med school. So that's how that career path started.
Well, I was just going to make the comment, Gitesh, that it sounds like most of the people that I interviewed chose their careers, but in your case, I think your career chose you.
No, but I was listening to Lorna's interview, and it sounded almost like
Mm.
the same thing.
It's true. It
So,
did
so
also with her. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so got into medical school, and then when I was in fifth or sixth year, it was kind of my leaning was towards surgery. So
Mm.
when I finished the internship, oh no, sorry, while I was doing my internship in surgery, uh, at that time at King Edward, there were 5 units, so you were on call every fifth day. So we were on call on the Sunday, and then we had this guy that came in with a stab abdomen with his intestines hanging out. So we took him to theater and sorted him out, and then sent him off to the rehab hospital on Tuesday. And then
Mhm.
we were on intake again on the Saturday. And then in the early hours of Sunday, we get a call that there's a patient that's coming with a stab heart. And no, so
Mm.
stab heart usually goes straight from casualty to theater thing. So anyway, get him sorted out. And then that morning, doing the post-operative round, I see this guy, looks familiar to me. So I lifted his gown to look at his abdomen, and I see this big scar there. And I said, listen, you were here on Sunday.
No.
So he says, yes. So I said, well, what happened? I mean, you come into the stab abdomen, now you come into the stab heart. I mean, like, what happened? He said, hey, doc, this lady next door, like her, husband stabbed me twice. So
Really?
I thought to myself, I said, do I seriously want to do surgery? And that's exactly how I changed career path, because then I thought, okay,
Ah,
gynecology kind of encompasses a lot of things. You do a bit of surgery, bit of medicine, bit of pediatrics, bit of psychology, like a bit of everything, but you're not a master of like lots of things. So
yeah,
so I
yeah.
thought to myself, I said, okay, maybe that's the way I should go. And that's how I got involved and became a specialist in obstetrics and gynecology.
That's incredible. So these turning points, you really brought them out quite nicely. Where in your life you have certain moments sometimes that point you now in a different direction for decades. And it can be one little incident that can now point you in. I mean, that one. I love that story about the form. And what happens if there hadn't been an extra form? Your life would have been totally different.
Yeah,
Eh?
wait, I'll tell you something before that. So I was telling you, my first cousins were lecturers in the engineering department. So when I was in metric, uh, one of the younger of my first cousins had gone across to Oxford and did his doctorate in engineering. So he
Mm-hmm.
had obviously lots of connections there. So he
Mm.
had sent me a form to apply to do engineering in Oxford
All right.
when I was in metric. So I had filled it in and no thought to it. It was like done yet nothing. So anyway, late in the year that I did my metric, no, sorry. It probably was the following year when I got my results.
Mm.
Based on the results, they decided they would give me a bursary to come and study engineering in Oxford.
Mm.
Now, this is 1971.
Mm.
Right? So anyway, so I get this letter. So I like normal, you got to go and talk to your parents. And my dad was very excited about the fact that I got this bursary.
Mm.
My mother said nothing. She just said no, and she walked into the kitchen. So that was the end of the conversation. There was no ways I was going to go to Oxford. So who knows? I might
And,
have
and,
been an
and and
engineer.
why not? Because you would be overseas, or what was the? Mm. She didn't want you going.
So anyway, did obstetrics, qualified in 1985, was a consultant for a little while, and then in 86 I went into private practice. I've been in private practice since then. And then I was thinking about how, oh, did lots of things, studied lots of things. Uh, did diploma in aesthetic medicine because I wanted to do aesthetic medicine. And then decided, no, that's probably not the way to go because of lots of reasons. And then the reason why I got involved with medical legal work was because for two reasons. My wife's specialist anesthetist, and she had a case that came up against her. She did an anesthetic on a patient, and the surgeon put the trocar into the vein, and the patient had a pulmonary CO2 embolus. So a case came up against her because they were accusing her of intubating the throat rather than the trachea. And the expert report was from a professor in anesthetics at that time. I can't remember where, but not important. Through the report, and she based the whole report on CO2 recording from, the machine, the anesthetic machine keeps a record of everything. But she based the report on that anesthetic machine report. But if you take the timeline of when that happened, it was quite obvious that it didn't happen at the time of intubation. It happened like about 10 minutes later. So it couldn't be related to a...
Not causally connect.
Yeah. And then that started me on this path that I'm on now. And unfortunately, at that time, the lawyers that were involved didn't realize this. So we started researching this thing, and then we went back to them and said, listen, whatever that expert witness is saying is based on an incorrect fact. Because if you look at the timeline, here's the line that should have been followed. And I also realized, because I've had one or two complaints with the Health Professional Council, and I realized that you can't depend on the lawyers because they don't have enough medical knowledge.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah.
And also, we don't have the legal knowledge.
Yeah, that's right.
The one thing I learned in this course is the points that you made. You look at the issues, first of all, and then you have to address those issues. But for me, most important thing that's come out of this whole course is the one thing you said. Would you give the same report if the other party instructed you?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the test which Lord Wolf developed in England, in the Wolf in the Wolf report. Yeah.
I
Very
think
good
that that's such an important point. And going through this, the initial course and now this course, and hopefully, God willing, I'll do the advanced course.
Mm.
I think the problem is there are not enough people that understand that that is what you have to do.
Yeah. Mm.
The report that you give has to be exactly the same report you will give if the other party instructed you.
Absolutely. And if I interviewed Prof. Laram, who you will obviously know from
On the
another
initial
course.
course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what Prof. Laram, what he takes us through his article, Beware the Hired Gun. And he talks about this exact issue of objectivity and
Yes.
independence. And the thing is that what I did try to bring out is what experts must understand is that at the heart of what they're doing is their relationship with the court. And the court ultimately is the judge if it gets to that point. But before that, it's the legal teams and
Yes.
it's the other expert witnesses as well, are all really part of the court, right? It's all a process. But what you want is a solid relationship with all of those other human beings. Now, they may be wrong and they may be ethically or intellectually wrong, but the challenge is for you to remain intellectually and ethically grounded and sound, and regardless of where they are. And ultimately, if you do get before a judge and you give evidence and you're cross-examined, that is what will steer you through that experience. And even if you don't get to that point and if the matter is settled, if you have a solid approach to everything you're doing, that will shine through even in your written work, and that will give you a credibility and a strength to your opinion based on, as you say, the assessment of the issues and understanding of the facts, your reasoning process, and then your conclusion or your opinion. And if you've got those four steps right, you've got a compass, and you're going to find your way through whatever jungle or forest or desert you find yourself in the litigation environment. You'll have a route forward. So, yeah, I very much that's a very good point. You see that in that point goes then to your integrity and to your character, and that will come through in everything that you do.
And I think the other thing from a medical point of view, I think, it came out in one of the cases you were talking about. The way medical people look at things and the way the legal
Mm,
institutions look
mm,
at things. And
mm,
I think
mm.
that's the bridge.
Yeah.
And in
Mm,
some way, we need to kind
mm.
of, there's got to be some way that we either have to have a course in medical school which discusses these kind of legal
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
and there's got to
Yeah.
be a course in the legal thing that
100%.
discusses the
Yeah.
medical thing, because you
Mm,
know just purely from a practical point of view, as a surgeon, you do an operation and there's things that you encounter which may be complications.
mm,
Right? and
mm,
and unfortunately, what's become the kind of norm now is if something goes wrong, then the surgeon or the gynecologist or whoever has done something wrong. Not that,
mhm,
let me give you an example. I do a hysterectomy on a patient. Like I did a hysterectomy on a patient about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
mhm. Got total abdominal, hey?
Yeah, she had 3 previous cesarean sections.
Ah, right. Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
everything was stuck. The bowel was stuck,
Yeah.
the bladder was stuck,
Complicated. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now,
Oh.
if you have a, a problem, let's just say, for example, we ding the bladder, ding the bowel,
Mm-hmm.
and the patient's perception is that no, you did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think the legal fraternity needs to understand that as well.
Mm-hmm.
That there's a difference between being negligent and having a
Mm-hmm.
complication.
100%. That is, in fact, the legal position. The difference between a medical misadventure and negligence. And there are some very good judgments on that very point. I'm happy to say, in this regard, the law is correct. Do the lawyers always understand it and apply it correctly? That's a different question. But the actual legal position is exactly what you've said. Just because something goes wrong doesn't mean that there's necessarily be negligence.
But it's the reason why I brought this point is, unfortunately, the legal fraternity doesn't apply the same thing. Would you, if you were appointed by the other side, have the same point of view?
Well, I'd like to believe that I would, but I would investigate whether if your nicking of the bowel or the bladder was that. Can I tell you something? I actually did a total abdominal hysterectomy case not that long ago, and we had to investigate this very issue of nicking the bladder,
Yeah.
and it was one of the key issues in the case was the question. I mean, I would say the case turned on. Well,
Yeah.
the first important inquiry, there was then a causation issue, but the first important inquiry actually was this question of whether,
Yeah.
in the particular circumstances of this case, was the conduct of the surgeon in accordance with the standard of the reasonable surgeon within the circumstances of that was that's negligence, right?
Yeah.
That's the test for negligence. So it's interesting that you raised that particular example. I've just been through, so I can actually, hand on heart, answer that is exactly how I approached that case.
Yeah.
So funny that you asked that question. So I can give you an actual real life answer and say to you, yes, yes. The answer is yes. Gitesh, we are heading towards the end of our
Yeah.
time.
No, it's fine.
Can you maybe give us some closing thoughts? And listen, I've loved this interview. It's been such a pleasure just sitting down and chatting to you. And it's so evident that, you've got a wealth of experience. You've got a wonderful way of telling a tale, I must say, and a very engaging way of speaking. You would have made a very good lawyer, by the way. Maybe that paper went in the wrong direction. You should have gone to the law school instead of medical school. But anyway, some concluding.
Well, Ian, can I quickly tell you two things?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to be 40 years in private practice next year. So that's the first thing.
Congratulations.
But also, my daughter's married an amazing young man. My son-in-law did dentistry, and I always tell him he did dentistry because she was doing dentistry, so he followed her. Yeah. And then he did law after that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So now he's working for the MPS, and he's got an amazing podcast. It's called Why I Became a Doctor. And I think maybe you guys must cross-link this thing, because
absolutely.
There are stories you don't like with Lorna. I'm telling you, Lorna's interview is, in my mind, still such an amazing interview. Just to hear from where she came and where she is and where she wants to go. And I think all of us have stories like that. I think all of us.
Well, I mean, they all are. Every single person. And I say it so often, but I genuinely mean it. I love doing these interviews because they are. It just gives you an insight. It's a real privilege for me because people allow themselves into their personal and professional space. And I've done, I think, 6 or 7 interviews today, and I've interacted with 6 or 7 senior professionals, all of whom have demonstrated a real commitment to personal excellence and then professional excellence, and have dedicated literally years of their lives to living as professionals with everything that entails, all the sacrifice you make when you're young, all the challenges you have, learning your hard first steps where you know better, all the way through. Now, I'm more advanced now. I'm not as advanced as you are. But then you start getting the pleasure of being able to do your profession well. If you're applying yourself well, it's still hard work, but you get a certain rich pleasure from being able to do something which is difficult, at least adequately well, hopefully a bit better than that. And then all the experiences of interacting with colleagues, even from across the professions. So I really enjoy interacting with medical professionals, legal professionals, and one of the things I enjoy about experts is there's such a rich variety of experts. And then there are, of course, my legal brothers and sisters who I have an affinity that they're part of my extended family in a professional sense. But I enjoy all of that, and you get this insight into each individual character and the pace at which they speak and the way that they speak and the experiences that they've had, the life experiences. It's just fantastic, and no, very, very good. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy them.
And I also want to thank you for an amazing course, really. The depth, the thought, way you take us through it. I mean, when I was doing the basic course, I often got stumped with the legal kind of understanding of things. But even in the basic course, I still remember you doing the expert witness part of it.
Mm.
And I got that book, and it's got, like, if you could see the tabs
I haven't got mine yet. Mine looks like
on your
yours.
on your course.
Mine's like that because I need to teach you guys. So every day I spend Sunday, I prepare
Yeah,
and I put
but
tabs and I build up tabs. By the end of the course, that thing has got more tabs than pages, Yeah.
I was saying the same thing. I just
Mm,
wish more medical people would do this course. And
mm,
I think for the legal people, it's also, you made that point about how uh, medical people look at the scientific
yes.
cause
Yeah.
of things, right?
Yeah. That's Michael
And
versus
how
Hicksville Park. Yeah.
legally you got to
Uh,
based on probability.
uh-huh.
You know how true that
Uh,
is, and
that's
and
very true.
and often medical people will go back and try and justify or not understand why the legal people are not seeing it the way we're seeing it.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's the
right.
problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because
Mm,
we look at it from a different point of view, and you got to
mm,
kind of get the legal people and the medical people to kind of sit together and and
mm,
think. But the other thing that I also think that's important is, you know, retrospective thinking is
mm,
different from when you're faced with a situation.
mm.
When you've got the end result, it's very easy to look back and say, okay, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called
But when
the law's aware of that. It's called an armchair critic. You're sitting in your
so
armchair and you're criticizing, right? You're
yeah,
not in the theater or no.
I think that's so important because and the, I was saying I'm 40 years in private practice. I can tell you it's not enjoyable doing private practice at the moment because you're dealing with so many, everything's got to have a piece of paper. You got to sign this, sign that, sign everything.
Mm, mm,
Google is a big problem.
mm, mm.
TV is a big problem because patients expect things to happen the way they see it on TV. And
Yeah.
then
Mm,
when a problem is, it's always someone's fault.
yeah.
Whereas when I first started private practice, it was unbelievably rewarding because patients appreciated
Mm,
everything you did. And,
mm,
and if there was a problem, you went and spoke
mm,
to the patient and listen, this is what happened. And they accepted the
mm,
fact that you did the best that you could do.
mm, mm,
Nowadays, it's not like that. Nowadays, it's like, okay, I'm going to sue
mm,
you because you did something that you shouldn't have done.
mm,
So it's
mm,
not the same kind of, I don't know if you understand this. I'm just saying is I don't feel the same kind of happiness I felt 40 years ago.
mm,
And then at that time,
mm.
working in like a completely different environment. I mean, there was no luxuries at that time
Mm,
compared to,
mm. Yeah,
so
but you had your essentials and you had your core professional principles. Gitesh, it's been great. I'd love to chat to you for hours. We're out of time,
we
but
got to go.
it's yeah. But I want to make an observation before we go. I just want to tell you this that yours is the longest interview that I've done of this course, but I want to tell you that you're the person that speaks the slowest, and it's been absorbing listening to you speak. And you know, I speak professionally, obviously. And one of the things that occurs to me is that I can follow what you're saying because you pace what you say. So you've got a wonderful way of speaking. You're a very engaging person to interviewee. And you know, with it really, you are now in an eminent position where you've got those 40 years in private practice. It's worth gold, you know. And I just thank you for your kind remarks and for your time. And you know, I say this to all of my guests, but I really honor your professionalism and your willingness to learn and invest in yourself and to serve as an example to your community. I really mean that. And it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you, Gitesh. And I hope and I'm sure we will still have many interactions in future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
Thank
I
you,
really
Gitesh.
appreciate what
Thank
you're
you
doing
so
for
much.
us. And I appreciate you as a teacher, honestly.
Thank you so much, Gitesh. I really appreciate that in turn. Thank you. Good night. Have a good evening. Cheers in. Bye bye.